Hello and welcome. This is our second video for the Global Internal Audit Standards, the new version of the Internal Audit Standards issued by the Institute of Internal Auditors. In the first video, I have given you the introduction of those standards, a very high level bird eye view of those standards. Now we will go into further details, and in this video I'll be covering specific to the first segment of the framework, which is the Global Internal Audit Standards, and we'll see how the domains are there, how the principles are comprised of, and how the standards are linked with those principles. So before we get off to a start, let's ask some interesting questions, and during the course of the video we'll get the answers to those questions. How standards are structured? What elements of these standards are mandatory and non-mandatory? How many standards are in the new version, and what constitutes the standards? And how are the standards connected with the 15 guiding principles? So let's repeat some of the part we discussed in the last video, which is about the 5 domains of the global auditing standards and how this is connected with the principles and the standards. So there are basically 5 domains, 15 principles and 52 standards. The 5 domains are the purpose of internal auditing, which is not linked with any of the standards but defines the purpose of internal auditing. Domain 2 is ethics and professionalism. 3 is governing the internal audit function. 4 managing the internal audit function, and 5 is about performing internal audit services. Domain 2, which is ethics and professionalism, has 5 principles: demonstrate integrity, maintain objectivity, demonstrate competency, exercise due professional care, and maintain confidentiality. And it is having 13 standards. So when you read the name, you can recall the previous framework as well, the previous standards. You might be linking them with those and how they are now restructured actually and redefined and in an enhanced way. So we'll get more details about that, but this is just to get you a feel of how they are linked actually. Then governing the internal audit function is about 3 principles authorized by the board, positions independently and overseen by the board. Domain 4, and it is having 9 standards. Domain 4, carrying the 4 principles: plan strategically, then manage resources, communicate effectively, and enhance quality. So managing the function, you can see it is more relevant, and topics are all really linked. The principles are really linked with the domain, and it is having 16 standards. And the last domain, which is performing internal audit services, is having 3 principles, which are plan engagements effectively, conduct engagement work, and communicate engagement results, and monitor action plans. And it is having 14 standards. So the second domain is about the ethics and professionalism, and it is having 13 standards. So let's have the understanding of this section. So the first principle, which is linked with the ethics and professionalism domain, is demonstrate integrity, then maintain objectivity, demonstrate competency, exercise due professional care, and maintain confidentiality. So principle 1 is having 3 standards. 1.1 is honesty and professional courage. The second one is organization's ethical expectations, and 1.3 is legal and ethical behavior. For the second principle, which is maintain objectivity, the standards are 2.1 individual objectivity, safeguarding objectivity, and number 3 is disclosing impairments to objectivity. Third is demonstrate competency, which is covered by the standards 3.1 competency and 3.2 continuing professional development. The 4 is exercise due professional care, covered by standard 4.1 conformance with the global internal audit standards. 4.2 is due professional care, and 4.3 is professional skepticism. The fifth principle is maintain confidentiality, which is covered by the standards for 5.1 use of information and 5.2 protection of information. So third domain is about governing the internal audit function. The third domain is having 9 standards. So let's quickly have an overview of the third domain. So the first principle is principle number 6, linked with third domain, is authorized by the board, then positioned independently and overseen by the board. The principle 6 is linked with 3 standards. 6.1 is internal audit mandate, internal audit charter, and board and senior management support. The principle 7, positioned independently, is linked with the standard organizational independence and chief audit executive qualifications. The principle 8 is overseen by the board, which is linked with the standard board interaction, resources, quality, and external quality assessment. So the domain 4 is about managing the internal audit function. The managing audit function comprises of 16 standards. So let's have an overview of how many principles are there and how those principles are linked with the standards. So the principles are plan strategically, manage resources, communicate effectively, enhance quality, and the standards which are linked with the principle 9, plan strategically, are 9.1, understanding governance, risk management and control processes, internal audit strategy, methodologies, internal audit plan, coordination and reliance. Then for manage resources, we have 3 standards. 10.1 is financial resource management, human resource management, and technological resources. For principle 11, communicate effectively, we have standard 11.1, building relationships and communicating with stakeholders, effective communication, communicating results, errors and omissions, and communicating the acceptance of risk. For that principle 12, enhance quality, we have 3 principles, 3 standards. 12.1 is internal quality assessment, performance measurement, and 12.3 is oversee and improve engagement performance. So the last but not the least is domain 5, performing the internal audit services. So the performing the internal audit services is having 14 standards. So let's have an overview of this segment of the standards. So we have principle plan engagements effectively, principle number 13, the first principle of domain 5. Then we have conduct engagement work, and then communicate engagement results and monitoring action plans, a very important principle, number 15. The principle number 13 is having standards 13.1, engagement communication, engagement risk assessment, engagement objectives and scope, then evaluation criteria. 13.5 is engagement resources, and 13.6 is work program. For conduct engagement work, principle number 14, we have been covered by standard 14.1, gathering information for analysis and evaluation. 14.2 is analysis and potential engagement findings, then evaluation of findings, and recommendations and action plans, engagement conclusions, and engagement documentation. So more or less, when we are doing our audits, we are doing all these things. We are following the same practices, but we'll look into this enhanced version with more details. Then principle number 15 is covered by the standard 15.1, final engagement communication, and 15.2 is confirming the implementation of recommendations or action plan. So this is how we are covering all these 5 domains linked with the principles and linked with the relevant standards. So thank you so much for your time. Keep watching my videos, share these videos subscribe the channels, because more new interesting videos are coming, and we will be covering the whole standards one by one, and we'll also simultaneously cover the practical implication of those standards. So thank you so much, and keep watching the videos.